Thank you for joining us for this week's message at Crosswind Church. If you have any questions about this message or about Crosswind Church, please visit us at www.crosswindchurch.net, or you can email us at info@crosswindchurch.net.
Well, good morning. My name is Jeremy, and I'm the pastor here. We are currently in our second part of a series called The Elephant in the Family Room, and I'll try to kind of bring you up to speed and tell you why it's important that we're talking about this here today. Last week we kind of raised the tension, we raised this awareness, probably something we're all kind of aware of. We acknowledge the elephant in the room, and that is this. We have a responsibility as followers of Jesus Christ to invest in the next generation. For those of us that are parents, that means in our kids. For those of us that don't have kids, that means other people. We have a responsibility and we have a burden to carry, and that burden is to spiritually direct our children in the next generation. Here's the problem. Here's kind of the elephant. For most of us as parents, we struggle with that. We know that that's something we're supposed to do, but we don't necessarily know how to do it. Because maybe it wasn't modeled for us, or maybe it wasn't modeled for us very well, or maybe we kind of read a book somewhere, we heard somebody had an idea that you should do, and we read that book, and then we went, that's just not realistic for my family, there's no way that could even begin to work, right? Or hey, our family is maybe not a traditional kind of family, maybe we're a blended family, or maybe I'm a single parent, that sort of thing. So we acknowledge that, hey, we have this responsibility. We also acknowledge we really don't know what we're doing, and what most of us do is we just kind of go, okay, well, I'm just not going to talk about it. I'm just not going to think about it. There's this big giant elephant that sits in all of our family rooms. We know we have this responsibility, and we just don't talk about it at all. And so in this series, what we wanted to do is we wanted to kind of look at the elephant in the eye and kind of say, okay, if this is the responsibility that we have, how do we do it? What are some principles that we can learn from God's Word that we can put into practice and into play with regard to that? And before we go any farther, today is super, super, super important because it's going to hit everybody in the room. Because I think that the temptation, as we said last week, is to go, well, I'm a grandparent, or well, I don't have any kids, or I'm single, or I'm in high school, or whatever it is, and so that doesn't apply to me, and so you just kind of cut me off for a few weeks. I don't want you to do that, and here's why. Because no matter who you are, you have this responsibility. Today we're going to talk about this. So whether you're a grandparent, you've got grandkids, whether you're an empty nester and your kids are grown, you don't have any grandkids, maybe you're a parent raising a kid, a grandparent raising a kid, single mom, single dad, you're not married yet, you're newly married, you don't have kids, everybody this applies to today, and I'm super pumped to kind of get to talk about it. Now, what we said last week was that we're using a passage, a very famous passage of Scripture in the Old Testament, kind of as a springboard to talk about some of these things, as an outline, if you will. So every week I'm going to read a little bit of a passage called the Shema. It was a very famous passage in the Old Testament. The Jews would have memorized it. They would say it on a regular basis. It would have been written down on their houses. They would have kept it on their person. And we read it all last week. Today I want to begin by just reading the very first verse, Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, and use it as a springboard into what we're going to talk about today. It says this: "Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one." And really, it's the first three words that are going to kind of guide us and kind of guide our discussion here today. Hear, O Israel. I think it's important that when God, through Moses, begins to tell the people of Israel how it is that they are to have this responsibility to share the faith with the next generation, he doesn't start by saying, "Hear, O fathers, hear, O parents." He says, "Hear, O Israel." In other words, everybody's involved. In other words, it's going to take everybody to be a part of it. In fact, the entire nation needs to know about this and needs to hear this, because we all are going to help shoulder a part of that responsibility. So here's my take home in case you fall asleep or have to leave early or tune me out. I want you to get this. This is the one thing I want you to understand before we go any farther. And here it is this. If we are, as followers of Jesus, we are going to help the next generation take a step towards Jesus. We are going to help the next generation take a step towards Jesus. It's all hands on deck. Okay? Let me pray for us, and then we'll talk a little bit more. God, we so need your help with this. We so need your guidance and your direction. Please be in our thoughts and conversations and speak directly to our hearts. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Looking back on my life, growing up, there were a lot of folks that influenced me and had a small or large part to play in my life, big little good, bad. Thinking back just over the last week as I prepared for this, over the last few weeks as I prepared for this, I got to thinking the biggest influence in my life growing up was my mom and my dad. Primarily, they are the ones that influenced me more than anybody else. And when you start thinking about it, like their faith became my faith, right? Their faith in God became my faith in God. They're like, I think politically like them. I think socially like them. I work like them. Like so much of what they did intentionally and unintentionally influenced me. They were the primary influencer in my life. But there were so many other people that had a small little role, both friends and people that were just outside of our family. I'll give you some examples. So when I was in the 6th grade, I moved to a new school. And with going to a new school means that there were new friends that I needed kind of to form. And I found a new friend. His name was Andy. And Andy was a lot like me in a lot of ways. We were both good test takers, which meant that we basically show up in class and listen to the teacher and we could at least pass a test. That was kind of, I like taking tests. In fact, every now and then when I hear the students are prepared for the ACT again in high school, I'm like, I kind of want to take it again. Like, I'm that kind of nerd. Like, I'd kind of like to know how I do today. Probably a lot worse. But regardless of that, I like taking tests. I was good at it. So was Andy. But what came with that is Andy had this bad habit of not doing any homework. Like, he just didn't do any homework. And so I kind of watched Andy for a little while in the 6th grade, and I started to realize, you know what, I don't have to do homework either, because I can pass tests, and that's kind of good enough to get by. You know, to do the bare kind of minimum, and I'll kind of do that. And so we rolled through 6th grade, went into 7th grade as good friends, and you know, we sat together in class and ate lunch together, and all kinds of things that you do when you're in middle school. And I continued this trend of not doing any homework because Andy wasn't doing any homework, right? I would read magazines in class. I would you know, doodle and write out the 50 states and their capitals or whatever it was, just to ignore the teacher. You know, kind of paying up attention so when the test came, I could kind of do it. And we get tests back. You know how you do when you're in school. You want to know how everybody else did, how you do, and how I do, right? I always did just a little bit better than Andy, but it was just kind of basically enough to kind of get by. I wasn't you know, turning in stellar grades. I was mainly a C student with every now and then a D. This is in 7th grade, right? So I try to tell my kids, don't do as I did, do as I say. But regardless of that, that was just this bad habit that I kind of got into. And we get to the end of the 7th grade, and summer kind of comes, and I hear that my friend Andy is going to have to repeat the 7th grade. I find out that he actually got failed. He failed. He probably failed back then. Now we just call it you repeat or got retained. It's a little less harsh. He failed the 7th grade. He's going to have to repeat the 7th grade. And I had passed on to the 8th grade. But I remember I found his phone number and I called him up and I was like, Andy, like, what happened? He was like, dude, I failed. Like, I didn't do enough work. I didn't learn enough. I wasn't good enough at taking the test. I couldn't get through it, so I'm going to have to repeat the 7th grade. It was devastating, and I realized, you know what? My friend had influenced me so much for 2 years. I dodged a bullet. Like, I almost had a major problem that I had to deal with as far as middle school deals with major problems, right? Okay, so then in the 8th grade, I began to kind of develop a new circle of friends. By the time I got to high school, that friend group was developed. There were 6 of us total, and it was just the blessing of God that I found these guys, because they were all good guys. They all came from good families. They all loved Jesus. Some of them went to my church. Some of them didn't. Went to other churches in town, and we kind of started hanging out with each other. And what was interesting is none of them partied and drank or slept with girls or did any of that. We just didn't smoke or do drugs or anything like that. None of them did. And so I didn't either. I just kind of fell with that group, and we just kind of worked our way through high school. And when I think about my high school years and my early college years especially, it was largely influenced and impacted by these 5 other guys and what it was that they kind of rubbed off on me and how they influenced me along the way. But it wasn't just friends that I had to do with. There were other adults as well. Other adults other than my mom and dad that kind of laid a real framework for how I did life. And now that I'm an adult, I kind of look back and kind of see some of those things. One of the most obvious I wanted to share with you is a guy by the name of Andrew Gray. Andrew Gray was my church league basketball coach. Now let me explain what that is, because I don't think we have a whole lot of church league basketball around here. In Kentucky, we play basketball, and we're good at it, okay? So like we teach people how to play basketball, go Big Blue Nation. So regardless of that, I was not good enough. I don't know if you noticed, I'm not the tallest of guys. I was not good enough to play high school ball. My high school was a kind of a big school, lots of athletes, and so it was easy to go and try out and get cut for the team, but it was not so easy to make the team. But we had church league basketball, meaning that a church would put together a team of teenagers to play basketball, and other churches would do it, and we'd play in the rec department in our town. It was amazing. I loved it. I played church league basketball for 6 years, and Andrew Gray coached me for all 6 years. To this day, if you were to walk in the back of the door, I would call him Coach. He's just my coach. That's just what he did. I never realized, though, it never really dawned on me until many years later, that Andrew Gray didn't have any kids on the team. Like, he didn't have a single son at all. He had 2 daughters that were much, much younger than us. When he started coaching the team, he was single. He got married while he was coaching me. He had his first daughter while he was coaching me. He had 2 little girls, and he just hung out. He chose to come hang out with a bunch of smelly teenage boys and coach them in basketball. He coached me for 6 years. And he did it simply because he wanted to have some influence on some young boys that were growing up. He wanted to have some influence on the next generation of boys. A few years ago, my home church was going through a really difficult time. There was division and backbiting sometimes happens in churches, you know, and there was talk of a split. And they didn't have a pastor at the time. And my coach was the chairman of the deacons at the time of this church. He called me up and he said, "Listen, I know you're a pastor, and I don't have any help. Can you just talk with me through some stuff?" I said, "Coach, I'll be happy to, but I can't do it right now. I'm not making this conversation happen. I can't do it right now. I'm going to have to call you later." And he was like, "Why do you have, well, yeah, that's fine. What's going on?" He was like, "Well, I'm getting ready to walk onto a football field and coach a group of 9 and 10-year-old boys in upward flag football." And he was like, "Oh, that sounds fun." I hung the phone, and it wasn't until I walked off the field to go call him back that I realized the reason that I was coaching these boys, I didn't have a son on the team. I had 2 little girls at home, right? The reason I was doing it is because I'd watched Andrew do it. It's because I had seen him invest in me, and I in turn went, "They need a coach, I'll coach them," right? I'll be happy to go and hang out and play with these little boys some football and invest in the next generation of men that are being brought up. And there's so many other guys. I could tell you story after story after story of adults that came alongside my mom and dad and helped teach me how to be a man, and helped teach me how to be a good follower of Jesus Christ. And if we were to talk to you, I think we would have similar stories. I think you would say, "Yeah, my parents were the primary influencer in my life. They were the ones that primarily were the ones that taught me what to do, good or bad," right? I do some of the things my parents did that were bad. I picked up some good stuff, their primary influence. But there were other people that came alongside me. There were friends, there were other adults, and I saw them, and I observed them, and I saw what was happening, and I picked up some traits. Or maybe I picked up some bad traits from some of them. And think about it for just a minute. Like, it was those people that handed you the first cigarette and said, "Hey, why don't you try this," right? And maybe you did. It was that guy that kind of pressured you to go a little bit too far in your relationship than you wanted to. It's those individuals that kind of help develop your views of the opposite sex, or people of different ethnicities, or whatever it was. Like, these were men and women that came along, and friends that came alongside and influenced you both good or bad. We know this, we've seen this, we kind of observed this. Now, here's why this is important for us as families, as we deal with the elephant that's sitting in our family room. Ready? Here's the deal. Kara Powell wrote a book called Sticky Faith. She's the president of the Fuller Youth Institute at Fuller Seminary. And in this book, she came across a really key principle that I want to share with you guys, and then we're going to talk about why all of this is important. She said this: children who have a faith that sticks with them into adulthood. Children have a faith in God that sticks with them into adulthood. They had 5 other adults. 5 other adults that were speaking into their life. The 5 other adults that were investing in them. Now, as a parent, right? Immediately you start thinking, who are the adults that are investing in my kids? Who are the adults that are speaking into my children? Who are the ones that are kind of helping direct them and mold them and shape them, whether I'm aware of it or not? They're there, right? Are these 5 people that are going to be saying the same things to them that I am saying to them at this particular point in time? Who are they? And if you're here today and you don't have kids, here's what I want you to realize. When we get done today, we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about it. You have the opportunity to be a part of some child's 5 adults. You have an opportunity to be one of somebody's 5. I absolutely love it. And so I want us to kind of see if we can't figure that out and work through that and try to see what the Bible has to say about who these 5 should be. And as a parent, let me talk to you for just a minute. As a parent, you have extraordinary control over this. Let me see if I can explain. As a parent, there's some things that you have control over, some things you can influence, and some things you don't have control over. Okay? Let me tell you what I mean by that. As a parent, you have no control over the decisions that your child makes. At which point you go, "Yes, I do have control over it." No, you don't. Listen, you can influence their decision, you can punish bad decisions, you can encourage good decisions, but at the end of the day, the decision is theirs to make, right? So let me explain. When I was 16 years old, I made a decision to drive my car 47 miles an hour in a 35-mile-an-hour zone, and I got a speeding ticket. Now, my mom and dad had told me that if I get a speeding ticket, I have to pay for the speeding ticket. My mom and dad had tried to deter me from speeding, but in that moment, when I was trying to get somewhere and I was in a hurry, I made a decision to speed. You with me? My mom and dad could not make that decision for me. They had zero control over that, right? Like you have zero control over your child, whether or not they're going to write down that homework assignment that the teacher gives them in school, or lie about it when you ask them if you have any homework. You can help influence that decision, but you have no control over it. You also have very little control over the experiences that your child has. Again, you can help influence them, you can help direct them, but sometimes they have experiences that we don't want them to have and we don't have control over. So when I was in the 3rd grade, I started riding the bus, the school bus, the big yellow. I'd ride it home, right? I love the school bus. Let me tell you what you learn on the school bus. Let me tell you what I learned on the school bus. I learned how to cuss on the school bus. In the 3rd grade. I remember the little boy coming to me and he shared with me some kind of limerick that had a couple cuss words in it. I knew that one of them was bad. I didn't know the other one was bad. When I got home to share that limerick with my mother, she let me know both of them were bad. Eventually, I learned other vocabulary on the school bus, and eventually those experiences that my parents couldn't control, right? Those words began to get incorporated into my language, so that by the time I was at the beginning of the 4th grade, I had mastered foul language. I was an artist, and it was my medium that I worked in, right? Like I was good at it. And listen, it was an experience my parents didn't want me to have, but it was an experience nonetheless that I had. Listen, as a parent, let me talk about modern day stuff. Your child is going to have to be on the internet. They have to be. Homework is going to require it. The world we live in is going to require it. And you can put safeguards in place and you can kind of influence it, but sometimes there's going to be a link that takes them somewhere that they don't even want to go. And they're going to see something that you don't want to see or have an experience that you don't want them to have. And once they see it, they can't unsee it. And once they hear it, they can't unhear it. And your child is going to have experiences, whether you like it or not, that although you try your best to influence them, you can't control them. But you want to know what you can largely control. Can largely control who they hang out with. At least for 16 years, you can completely control it, right? Because if they're going to go somewhere for 16 years, you have to take them. And if someone wants to come to your home to spend time with them, you have to okay it, right? There's some time at school, in a structured environment where you aren't as in control, but for the most part, you can control who they hang out with. You can control what adults that they're with for the most part, who their friends are going to be. Although you can't largely influence all of it, you can influence a good portion of it. You have a lot of control when it comes to that. And so when it comes to your children's 5 adults, we've got to have a principle that will help us kind of determine where our kids need to be, who our kids need to be with. Because if we're going to help the next generation take a step towards Jesus, it's all hands on deck. And there's a biblical principle to help us work through this, okay? It's a biblical principle that if you've been in church for a little while and you've heard before, there have been songs written about it. It's a biblical principle that was written down by a man named Solomon. Solomon was known as the wisest man that has ever lived. I think that that's probably true. In spite of all of that, man, he made some bad decisions. Like he had 1,000 women that were either like wives or like kind of partially wives. 1,000 women. Think about how much other wisdom he had to have to balance that out, to still be called the wisest man that's ever lived. Regardless of that, Solomon writes down this principle in a book called Proverbs, and it's a little 2-part proverb, and I want to read it for you and kind of talk through that just a little bit as we as parents, and as we as adults, and as we as Christians try to help the next generation win. Here it is, Proverbs chapter 13, verse 20. It says this: walk with the wise and become wise. I memorized that passage of Scripture in another Bible translation, and it actually said this way. The way I memorized it was, he who walks with the wise, he will grow wise. Sometimes it's hard to understand what people wrote down and make sense of it. So if you're new here, sometimes I'll put things in what I call the JIV, the Jeremy International Version, just so that I can understand it. The JIV of this verse is this. Right here it is. You become like who you hang out with. Right? How about that? You become like who you hang out with. And if you want to become wise, then you need to hang out with wise people. And here's the thing that I know about you as a parent and you as an adult that has influence over kids. You want the next generation to be wise. So that means we need to intentionally put wise people in their pathway. I've told you that the primary influence of every child is going to be their parent. Right? It's So parents, my call to you is real simple. Hey, let's stop being dumb. Right? Let's make wise decisions. Here's the thing that I want to talk to you parents. Just parents, just a minute. Everybody else can tune me out. I'll call you back in just a minute. Here we go. Just parents. Here's the thing. See, as the primary influencer of our kids' life, we want our kids to make wise decisions. Sometimes, however, we will abdicate or give up that primary influencing position for whatever reason it is. We'll give it up either intentionally or unintentionally. But I'm going to tell you two ways I think we give it up. First, this is how I give it up most often, right? I check out. You see me, I'll do that as parents? Don't raise your hand. Okay, but we do. Here's what it looks like. You see, you come home at the end of the day and you've had a long day at work, right? And my day was stressful and I had 12 meetings and the last thing I want to see right now is another person. Like I just don't want to know other people, know the problems. I don't care how your day at school was. Don't tell me because I'm going to feel like I need to fix something or call somebody else and I'm just not going to do that. And no, I'm going to check out. And so we eat dinner, we got to get dinner ready, we've got ball practice and we've got play practice and we've got music class and all that other stuff. And we finally get home at the end of the day and I'm exhausted. I sit down on the couch and turn on the TV and just go, right here. Or, do you want to know what my wife gets on to me all the time, including last night, she got on me for this? Pull out my phone, and I scroll mindlessly through Instagram, or I play a dumb game I've downloaded, right? Because I just want to check out. I just don't want to be there, right? I just want to disengage. Sometimes we even ask our kids to disengage, right? We shove a screen in their face. Here's an iPad, here's a Kindle, here's a phone, here's a TV. Leave me alone. And I'm not trying to say that in and of itself is bad always. There's times where you need to look at your kid and be like, hey, I need 20 minutes or I'm going to kill you, right? Just go away. Like, you're going to have to come bail me out of jail. Take 20 minutes, right? Listen, I think there's a time and place for that. But when you routinely and regularly check out and disengage, you abdicate your role as a primary influencer in their life. You just do. And at the end of the day, you have 693 weeks from the time they're born to the time they graduate from high school. Don't miss an opportunity to influence your child. Be wise with the time. Paul would put it this way. He would say, make the most of every opportunity because the days are short. Now, the other way that I think sometimes as parents that we advocate that role as a primary influencer is we try to jump phases in parenting. What I mean by that is this. We want to be our child's friend long before they're ready to be our friend. Okay? But listen, if you parent correctly, wisely, there will be a time when you get to be your parents or you get to be your child's friend. There will be a time when they're graduated and away from the house where you get to now be friends with your child. Okay? But do you want to know something that's interesting? 40% or so of middle school parents said they felt like it was important, if not imperative, that they be friends with their middle schooler. 37% of parents said that they have trouble if they can do it at all, saying no to their middle schooler. Listen. I want you to be friends with your kid. I just want you to be friends with your kid when they're ready for you to be their friend. In middle school, this is so hard. It's so hard. I'm preaching myself too. In middle school, they have enough friends. They need a daddy. They need a mama. Right? Come on. This is hard for me to hear. Okay? But when we try to jump that phase too soon, we do our kids damage. Jody was telling me yesterday, it's a story I've heard before. She had a friend growing up who had an older brother. And their mother would routinely buy the older brother and her friends beer and invite them over to the house to drink beer. And then when they leave, these are high school age kids. And when they would leave, she would give them mints. She would buy mints so that their mama and daddy wouldn't smell the beer on the breath. And I thought, man, we jumped the phase. Like we just over-jumped the phase. Like we're borderline reckless. Not just borderline. This is crazy what it is that's going on here. And I've heard stories of parents doing that. Parents hosting big, giant, what amounts to sex parties with their kids. Just going in the back room and saying, just have it. Just don't leave. Just stay here tonight. Put all your keys in a bowl. And just nobody can leave, right? Come on. When we do that, we're not acting wisely as parents. And we jump a phase and we don't do our kids any good. That study came out probably 7 or 8 years ago, and I can remember when it came out, I was talking to one of the teenagers, a teenager in my youth group in Alabama. She was in high school, and I was telling her about this statistic, and she said, yeah, I know about parents that do that. I know about parents who try to be their kid's friend, and they try to be cool, and they try to have influence in all the wrong ways. And then she said these words. A teenage high schooler said these words. Listen. They're not fooling us, though. We know that they're just bad parents. And I laughed. I was like, what? She's like, yeah, they're not fooling us. We know they're just bad parents. Listen, as parents, if you want the next generation to be wise, if you want them to take a next step towards Jesus Christ, then you are going to have to be living wisely. In addition to that, parents, we need to make sure that we're putting them around other adults that are saying the same things that we are saying to them. And if you're here today and you don't have kids, or if you're here today and you're in middle or high school, I'm ready to talk to you here in just a minute, so redial back in. I want you to understand, you have an opportunity now to be a wise person that someone else looks to. We've taught a lot about this, Jody and I have, with our girls, Emma and Abby. Abby's 10, Emma's 13, and they both like different things. They both have different extracurricular activities. Abby loves music, and so she's involved with piano lessons and voice lessons. And when we chose our voice and piano teacher, like, we were intentional about it. We didn't want somebody that was just good musically. In fact, we would be willing to sacrifice that just a little bit to get somebody that's going to be speaking the same things into their life that we're speaking. Somebody that loves Jesus and is going to direct them towards Christ, right? Those were things that were important, and we were happy and glad to find those for Abigail. Emma, on the other hand, plays softball. You know how coaches can be sometimes. I've been one. I've had the privilege of coaching Emma every year she's played, but now that she's in middle school, the stakes get a little bit higher, and my skill level is not quite where it needs to be, to coach her. And about a year ago, I'm just going to tell you a story, and I'm actually going to mention a name, but about a year ago, last summer, Emma was considering pitching. She had done some pitching, but she wanted to really kind of dive into it and start pitching on a regular basis. And so we kind of started looking around for some pitching coaches to see where we should go. And the middle school had hired a new softball coach. Her name's Chelsea, or Coach Farmer. And Coach Farmer contacted Jody, and she said, hey, listen, I pitched at University of Tennessee Martin. I was a pitcher there. OVC Player of the Year. Resume was just great. Seemed like she might know something about softball or pitching. And she's like, I would love to work with Emma. And so we were like, well, okay, we don't really know you, but okay. So we went to the pitching lesson. We were in this building in Union City, and I drive Emma to pitching lessons because I catch for her. I'm basically a glorified backstop. I can't tell her what to do, but I can throw the ball back to her sometimes. Okay, so I come to catch. I sit on a bucket. That's what I do. And Coach Farmer's working with her and showing her stuff, and that's fine. I'm just trying to absorb as much as I can so that I don't ruin her in the backyard when we do that in the backyard. And about 5 minutes before the lesson was supposed to start, Coach Farmer said to Emma, put the ball down, I want to talk to you. And I was like, well, it's the first time. She's going to tell her, you don't have what it takes, kid. Maybe you should, think about knitting or whatever it is. I don't know what she's going to say, but we're going to get some words of wisdom. And Coach Farmer sits down, crisscross applesauce, apart from Emma, and hands her one of those three grad notebooks, you know what I'm talking about? You buy for 15 cents at Walmart. And in it are some photocopy pages. And she said, here's what I want to do for the rest of the summer. I don't know what your goals are with regard to softball. I don't know if middle school is where you're going to finish, or high school is where you want to finish, or if you have hopes of playing in college one day. But here's what I know about all the girls who are going to play. At some point in time, their softball career is going to be over. There's not a professional softball league. Right? At some point, you're going to hang up your glove and your cleats, and you're going to walk away. When you do, I want to make sure that I've not just invested in you as a softball player, but you as a person. I want to talk about some character traits that are going to make you a better teammate on your team, and they're going to make you a better employee, and they're going to make you a better mom, and they're going to make you a better wife, and they're going to make you a better boss, and all those things. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about integrity, and we're going to talk about doing what you say you're going to do, and we're going to talk about all of those things. And we're going to spend the last 5 minutes of every lesson this summer doing that. And you have this notebook, and you're going to have homework that's going to teach you, not just about softball, but about this. And I'm a dad in the back, right? Like, I'm just kind of listening. And she's saying this, and I'm going, yes! Yes! Here's the thing. Watch. I still don't know anything about softball, right? I don't know if Coach Farmer is the best coach or the worst coach. I don't know. I don't know if she's a good pitching coach or a bad pitching. I don't know. And here's the truth. Can I just be honest with you? Coach Farmer's not here, but listen. I don't care. I don't care. So at the end of the day, I want somebody that's saying the same thing to my daughter that I'm saying. I want somebody that's going to teach her the same things that I'm teaching her. Let's make her a better softball player, sure, that's great. But I want other adults that are going to speak into her life. For us, that meant we got involved in group. Jody Powell and I got involved in group, and we put adults around her on a regular basis, and we make sure that Emma and Abby are involved in groups here at Crosswind Church. And we make sure that they have contact to and regular access to other adults that are going to say the exact same thing that we are telling them. When Emma was 12 years old and she started playing more ball, we got her a phone. And Abby turns 12, we'll probably do the same thing for her. There are some rules we set up around the phone, like we have to know who you're in contact with, and we're going to read your phone. You don't own your phone, we own your phone. These were things we said to her, right? We made her sign a contract. We did. You should do it. Okay. And we said, we're going to read your messages, and Emma's friends know that we read their messages, and some of them don't care. And there were a number of adults, there were a handful of adults that we put their numbers in her phone. You're like, we want you to have access to these adults, and if you can't get mom, you can't get dad, here's some other safe people you can call. About a year ago, Emma got invited to go shopping with Jamie Gurley. I don't remember why they went shopping. I don't remember why it was just the two of them, but the two of them went shopping. And Jamie was one of the girls, one of the women whose phone number is in Emma's phone. And Emma will probably be embarrassed by this, but saying, I'm sorry, but she came back and she made this statement. I don't know if it was immediately following the trip or a weeks following the trip. She said, Jamie Gurley is my best adult friend. And I went, yes. Yes! Because here's another adult, right? That is safe, that you can go and you can talk to, right? Just 2 weeks ago, Courtney Bonder, our children's pastor here at the church, walked up into the office and sat down, and she said to me, she said, hey, did you know that Emma's been texting me? And I went, no, but I'm so glad she has access to you. No, but I'm so glad she's got your number. I'm so glad, because here's one more adult, right, that's investing in their life. It's Abigail, who has been in Miss Linda Rice's small group now for 2 years, who knows that she has a problem. She has something she needs to talk about. She can go sit down with Miss Linda Rice, her small group leader. Because here's what I know as a parent. Come on, parents, here's what I know as a parent. There will come a time, sooner rather than later, when my girls will not want to talk to me simply because I'm the one that makes the rules. Not because they don't trust me, not because they don't love me, but they're going to have an experience, or they're going to make a decision, or something's going to happen to them, and they're going to go, I need to talk to somebody about it, but I can't talk to dad, and I can't talk to mom, simply because they make the rules. And when that happens to my kids, and it probably already has, and when it happens to your kids, it happens to all kids. Here's the question. Where are they going to go? In this time when you have influence over who they hang out with, and in this time where you have a little bit of say, and maybe in this time when you can control it completely, where are you going to send it? Because the person that walks with the wise, they become wise. And if that's true, you want to know what else is true? The second half of the verse. But the companion of fools suffers harm. Now here's a story we can tell, right? Over and over and over again. Listen, I was doing good, and then I got in with the wrong crowd. Listen, I was doing good, and then I listened to that person give me some bad advice. Listen, I was going along fine, and then they said this, or they did this, or they gave me this, or they put me in this direction, or they pressured me here, right? And I was with somebody, and we made some bad decisions, and I have suffered harm from it. Everybody in this room could tell that story. Listen, if it's true that the wise become wise when they walk with the wise, then the companion of fools is going to be someone that suffers harm. And if you've ever walked with fools and suffered harm, isn't it much harder to make that turn into what wisdom did, isn't it? In some cases, maybe you said this, in some cases you've gone, I've got to get some new friends. I've got to get around a new circle. I got to get around some wise people because I want to be wise. So what do we do with this? Listen. If we want to help the next generation, let's take a step towards Jesus. Then it's all hands on deck. And we're going to have to not just expand the sphere of influence, we're going to have to be intentional about who we expand it with. Right? So parents, let me talk to you for just a minute. Parents, let me talk to you for just a minute. This means you're probably going to need to get involved in a group. This means you're going to have to look at who you hang out with and who you put your kids around and go, maybe I need to find a better group of people. Some of you means I need to find other believers that are going to speak wisdom into my child so that I can help my child go further, faster in their faith. Right? Maybe it means you're going to have to make a decision. I'm going to make sure that my child is at Crosswind Kids or is at CWSM, our student ministry here, so that they can be involved in a small group where there's one or two other adults that are speaking truth into their life. We have men and women that meet with our students on Wednesdays. We have men and women that meet with our children on Sundays and Wednesdays. And we're intentional about putting them around a table with another adult who can look them in the face and go, tell me what's going on. How can I pray for you? Let me tell you about who Jesus is. Let me teach you what the Bible says. But in part of all of that, can I help you with something you're struggling with? And be another adult. I'm telling you, if we start making some wise decisions about the wise people we put our kids around, then they will grow to be wise. And if we want to help our children take a step towards Jesus, we have to expand their circle with wise people. If you want to know who else I want to talk to? I want to talk to people that do not have kids, that are not parents here. Maybe you're a grandparent and you've got grandkids. Maybe you're an empty nester and your kids are grown, you don't have any grandkids. Maybe you're married, you don't have any kids yet. Maybe you're single and you haven't even found somebody you want to go on a date with. Maybe you're in middle school or you're in high school. Let me talk to you for just a minute. Let me talk to you for just a minute. Because you're not too young to hear this. You have an opportunity to be one of someone's 5. How cool is that? How cool is that? Listen, you have an opportunity to come and get involved in a young person's life and to speak some wisdom. And for some of you, you know what that means? That means you need to start living wisely. Because there are people that are watching. You're going, well, I don't have any kids, Jeremy, and I don't have to worry about it. Come on, don't be foolish. People are watching. They're always watching. Listen, when I was in middle school, there was a guy that had just graduated from high school in my church. And I'm embarrassed of that. I wanted to be like him, man. Like, I wanted to be him. He was just so cool. Right? And everything he seemed to do just seemed to have gold around it. I know now that it wasn't the case, but it just looked that way, right? He always, he had amazing shoes that he wore. He always dressed real cool. And we played church softball together for a long, long time. And let me tell you what I did. I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but here's what I did. I watched what he did and then I did it. When he bought a hat, I bought a hat, right? When he wore his jersey and was out in his uniform a certain way, I wore my jersey uniform a certain way, even down to the point where he had to wear a knee brace for a little while, and I thought, man, my knee sure is hurting. I think I might need a knee brace. I'm not making that up. That's true. That is true. I bought a knee brace. Put it on. Anyway, I watched him, and I wanted to be like him. From the time I was in middle school all the way through high school, he was somebody that I looked to and I watched. And you want to know something? I don't think he had any idea. If you're in middle school, you want the truth? If you're in middle school, there are kids over at Crosswind Kids that are watching you. They're watching the decisions that you make, and they're watching the things that you say, and they're watching what you show up at and what you don't show up at. If you're in high school, you know that there are middle schoolers that are watching you. And they're watching what you do and what you don't do, and what you show up at and what you don't show up at. I had a conversation with a high school senior last school year. She's a junior last school year. Had a conversation with her right out in the foyer at Crosswind Student Ministry on Wednesday nights. I looked at her and I said, I need you to understand something. I'm so thankful that you're here. And I know sometimes it's a struggle. I know there's a lot of kids your age that are here, but my daughter's watching you. And I'm so thankful. Right? You may not even be aware of it, but they're watching you. If you are a college student or a young single adult, you better darn believe that there are kids that are watching you. Because you have something that I don't have. You're cool. I used to be cool. No, I used to be cooler than I am now. Right? Never was cool. But you don't even have to be that cool to be cool to a high schooler or middle schooler, right? When you're single and living by yourself or in college, they're watching you. Watching you. If you're married and don't have kids, they're watching you. So people want to be like you. Watch this. Go to home group.
as a single person, go to home group as a single person, as a married couple without kids, a young person, and watch how the kids gravitate towards you. They want to play ball with you. They want to dress like you. They want to be around you. Right? Come on. Whether you realize it or not, you're influencing the next generation. And we then have to be wise because we want them to be wise. We then have to make good decisions because we want them to make good decisions. Because we know if you walk with the wise, you become wise. The companion fools, however, suffers harm. Jesus was pretty serious when he talked about those that cause children harm. We want the next generation to take a step towards Jesus. And it's all hands on deck. And I need every single one of you. As a parent, I need you to be wise. As a non-parent, I need you to be wise. And I need you to make the most of every opportunity because they are watching. They are watching. In just a minute, we're going to close our service. And I want to invite you to do a couple of things when we leave. Number one, maybe it means you need to put your kids or find a small group for your kids to be a part of. Crosswind Kids, Crosswind Student Ministry, that's fine. If there's another small group they're a part of, I'm cool with that. Find other adults. Maybe it means you need to have a conversation with your kids if your kids are a little older, and you need to say, who are some adults you'd like to get to know? Who are some adults that you'd like to talk to? And then make a phone call and have a dinner, right? Go get some pizza, whatever it is. As a parent, we're just going to intentionally influence who our kids are hanging out with. And if you're here today and you want to be a part of a group, and you want to find some other adults that maybe can influence your children, can I invite you to come to lunch today? Even if you didn't sign up, come to lunch today. We'll order more pizza. We'll talk to you for an hour and send you on your way and let you know everything you need to know about why circles are better. Rows. Maybe it's just an awareness today. Maybe it's a, hey, I recognize now that other people are watching. Now I'm going to live as wise because I want them to be wise. Let's pray. Most gracious Heavenly Father, you are so good to us. You've wired us for community, and you've wired us to influence the next generation, not by ourselves, but in community. And so, Father, I pray that as parents and as folks without kids, you would help us to recognize who is influencing our kids and intentionally direct them towards the wise so that they will become wise. Because we want the next generation to know who you are. We want the next generation to know the life of Jesus is better. We want the next generation to find salvation in your Son, Jesus Christ. And so, God, I pray that you would help us to become someone's eye or invest our children in the lives of 5 other individuals for your sake, for your glory, for the next generation. We understand that if we want them to take a step towards Jesus, it's all hands on deck. In Jesus' name we pray this. Amen. Amen. I'll see you next week for part 3.